I'm surprised I wasted all the money on you.
That's dumb. That was
Um,
well. Here we go to
Cheers.
Happy Holidays.
Happy
Merry
holidays. Many more. Wrong, but good.
Wrong but good. Anyway, so this will be our last episode of the podcast for 2021. And I thought we could look at some things that are traditionally done at year end, just some data and some interesting things that we may have been able to find relating to the end of the year and sort of related to what we do, kind of related to what we do.
Shoot.
So I know I sent you some of the things that I thought we might chat about today. Some secondary research, not primary, although I do want to introduce some primary research or piece of the primary research results that we did into this conversation at some point. But secondary research, meaning we went out and we looked at some things that other companies or organizations, as our friends north of the border would say, conducted. And so two in particular relating to Christmas time, holiday time, end of the year. So one of the studies was conducted by a company called Statista. I'm not sure if that's the proper pronunciation. It's a European company, and they have huge databases, and they do some survey research on a lot of different topics. And they did a year-end study that was actually conducted in November, and they asked a little more than 1,000 respondents. I'm not sure of the methodology of where they recruit these respondents from. I just looked at a top line sort of summary of this research. It was just sort of interesting, but U.S. citizens ages 18 plus, wide-ranging topics related to end of the year and holiday. And just some interesting facts. I don't know, you saw what I had sent you about this?
I did.
Yeah. So a couple of things that sort of jumped out at me, first of all, that the average amount U.S. consumers plan to spend on holiday gifts, Christmas gifts, was $886 this year. So obviously, I don't know of the complete range of ages that they directed these surveys, that respondents who responded to the survey, but the average was 886. And I would think.
How did that compare to previous years?
So, well, this was interesting. They described it in the summary report that 75% of respondents said they plan to spend the same or more than last year. So I would imagine that if you dig into the data set, you have to buy it as a subscription.
Yeah, right.
You could find more, but that was
it would be a lot more useful if you knew the percentage of the same and the percentage of mores.
It wasn't all that interesting to me. It was based on what we were going to do, but it was sort of interesting that that's how they framed the summary report. And they expect year-over-year growth of sales for just holiday shopping, Christmas shopping, retail sales at $843 billion, again, U.S., and that's projected to be up 8.5% over last year. The one thing that I don't know, and again, wasn't worth diving into for the sake of this conversation. So I don't know whether the sample that they used, I think it was 1,018 respondents to the survey. I don't know if it's projectable to the U.S. population, meaning if it's representative of all the ages, geography, income, and other demographics. We don't know that. And I don't know if that information is available in the full data set. But one of the things that jumped out at me that suggests that it might not be is they said that the share of U.S. consumers planning to buy most of their gifts at Walmart is 49%. Does that make any sense to you?
Um, I saw that and I reacted the same way when I read it.
Obviously, I look at these things with a critical eye as to how critical methodology. I'm always looking at that. You know that I'm always looking to see whether things were done the right way. And there was another thing that sort of jumped out at me also. And they said there was a question that was asked, do you celebrate Christmas, the holiday season this year? First of all, again, it's not an American company, so I don't know if this is lost in translation somehow.
I was going to say, when you were reading that question, it's very poorly worded. So maybe if there is a translation issue, that's why it's coming across as so poorly worded.
Yeah, it seemed to say that that's how it was worded, but first of all, it was done in early November, right around November 10th, I believe. So are you celebrating or will you celebrate would probably have been better phrasing if in fact this was the phrasing. But they offered three choices. It seems they offered three choices: yes, no, and don't know. So again, to the point of properly framing and setting up a question, 85% of Americans in their respondents to their survey said yes, 10% said no, and don't know said 5%. So again, if this was asked in the present tense, because it says, do you celebrate? Why wouldn't somebody know?
Yeah, I mean, you have to qualify it maybe as well with COVID. I mean, let's say there's a surge in COVID of an arc of the week before Thanksgiving. That's going to change the answers to
100%. You're giving them the benefit of the doubt on the phrasing of how it's done. I'm not. I don't know. I have a problem.
I'm not giving the benefit. I don't like the way it was done. But I'm giving the benefit of the doubt to the answers.
Okay.
Possibly.
All right.
You know.
Okay. But I guess it's very optimistic. And what does celebrate mean? Celebrate can mean getting together in a group like you did in 2019 and before, with could be a large extended family or friends, or it could have been like in 2020 for a lot of people, where it was via Zoom or FaceTime or some other video chat technology, video phone technology. So again, I don't know what that means. What is?
Yeah, that's so badly worded,
I don't know.
because they're obviously looking for answers that would help. They probably want to know, are you going to go back to the traditional way to celebrate Christmas, or are you going to either not, or do a Zoom call, or, not.
I guess.
Yeah,
let's just move on. So anyway, I sent you another one that we're going to look at, and that's Think with Google, which is Google's consumer research or market research division. I don't know if it's a division. I don't know how it's set up, but they certainly have folks who are looking at the data that they're gathering, and they're gathering it in a different way than we do for our clients, as well as how Statista or Statista is doing it, which is survey research, and we'll get into that in a second. But in looking around for things to talk about today and look at today, one that I didn't know existed is something called the PNC Christmas Price Index. PNC being the big bank in the United States, one of the big banks in the United States. So apparently for 38 years, PNC has calculated the prices of the 12 gifts from the classic holiday song.
I've heard that every year, yeah.
12 Days of Christmas.
Right.
And they say it's a whimsical holiday tradition, and they adjust it for the price of labor and the cost of labor and other things that might make up some of the cost of some of these. So
yeah.
Overall,
go
ahead.
Isn't it like $900?
No. So, all right, let's play a game. All right, on the first day of Christmas, what did my true love give to me? Do you remember? Come on, a partridge in a pear tree. So this year, the cost of a partridge in a pear tree, according to their index, is $222.60.
Oh my God.
Which is up 6%, and that's because of entirely due to the rising cost of the Christmas tree, or of the tree. So the total cost for all 12 is $41,205.58, up 5.7%. Silly, very silly. So anyway, let's go back to something that's more real, and that would be the Think with Google information. So I thought we'd talk about the travel-related, two things, travel-related things that they found and the lasting effects of COVID, which will tie into the survey that we did with hospitality professionals from a few weeks back. So the interesting thing about the way Google does things is they're not going out and asking questions. They're just processing all the information that's coming in, meaning they're just capturing all the search queries that we're all doing every day. All the people all over the world are searching for stuff. And based on those searches, they can detect trends. So for instance, relating to travel, let me pull that up.
So is there an issue with the fact that if Google analyzes all your searches about travel and determines what you're interested in, but you don't go?
Yes. I mean, so, okay, to that point.
And that relates to any kind of search,
Of course it does, but it does say something that. So for instance, in 2021, there was an increase of people searching for international travel. The term international travel appeared somewhere in the search, was up 300%. So in 2020, there was some number of searches, and in 2021, it went up 300%. Does that mean that international travel went up 300%? To your point, absolutely not, but there's more interest in it. And whether it means that currently there's a significant amount of more international travel, or it foreshadows good things coming up, there is some value in knowing that, right? I don't think you can make dollar projections on sales based on that, but
especially not these times.
No, because things can change very quickly.
They change overnight.
Yes. Similarly, there was an increase in searches looking for hotel booking apps. That increased by that double. It was up 100%. So again, people are starting to look at the idea of booking hotels twice as many as last year.
Do a little psychology on that.
Okay.
They're looking at booking hotels, or they're looking at hotel options and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Is it because that they are ready to pull the trigger and ready to get out there and book a hotel? Is it because they're, just COVID shocked and they're just sitting around, they're looking for things to search for, they're looking at things of interest?
I think all of that plays into it. I mean, we do know from the other data that we've looked at over the last year, travel has increased significantly since certainly the early part of the pandemic, and hotel stays are up. They fluctuated a little bit here and there, but I think it doesn't. Again, you can't. It's just trends. I think that's what they see here.
Right.
Overall trends.
No, I hear you, but trends, they have to be qualified. You have to understand what you're looking at. For example, the statistic came out recently that airline flights are 90 some odd % full now during the last 3, 4, 5 months.
Okay.
The airlines cut back 30% of their flights.
Right.
So are they full because there's not enough choices for people, or not as many as there used to be?
Yes.
And they go where they have, they get on the plane they have to get on to get where they're going.
Yeah, but there's going to be a balance. I mean, at some point,
I'm sorry. I just don't like when the statistics are given and the whole picture is not shown at the same time. And you can infer things from statistics, as you know, as a market researcher your whole life, you can interpret the data any way that you'd like.
You can, you shouldn't, but
Of course
you
not.
can.
I'm just
You
saying.
can. No, you're 100% right. Like, and that's always been in any use of metrics or statistics. You have to make sure that it's accurately representing what A, it's supposed to do, and B, your use of that metric or statistic, it has to be pertinent or applicable.
Right.
And so, to your point, you got to know what's behind it with the airlines. So if you to look at it in a vacuum, to say that, okay, flights are now mostly full, is this a good time to start a new airline? Because there's no, all the airlines are full. Like there's demand for another airline, maybe, probably not, but because you don't know the full picture, you have to make sure the statistic describes accurately what you're looking at, the business problem that you're.
Perfect example, analytics in baseball.
It was in the back of my mind, but I'll let you.
We both hate analytics in baseball. They're very useful. At times they're even interesting. But you know what? If analytics work like the analytics people want them to, they would work 100%. There would be no reason for a manager at all. They would work 100%, but there are factors involved that just you have to consider along with the analytics.
Well, again, the statistics in baseball describe things that already happened. You in any case that you're looking at data, you're looking at historical data, and you're hoping that your models project that it's going to give you a future result.
Right.
But the problem is it doesn't. What happened in the past doesn't necessarily always translate into what happened.
There are variables today that affect it.
Right. I mean, to follow through on what you said about baseball, there's psychology. These are human beings, right? So if we know that, look at one of the best playoff baseball players of all time, near and dear to your heart, the New York Yankees, Derek Jeter. So if you had one at bat, bottom of the ninth, seventh game of the World Series, man on third, 2 outs, and you needed somebody to get the hit, statistically, I think he might be one of the guys that you would choose.
Right.
But if you knew that if you knew something else was going on with him,
he had a stomach virus the night before, or the plane was late, he got mechanical trouble, he got in at 4 a.m. I mean, there's so many factors that might affect that one moment.
Correct. And that's why an experienced baseball manager might buck the trend of what the analytics would say. You can't rely just on the numbers in that particular.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true here. You have to make sure you have a complete picture. And some of these things, and yes, machine learning and artificial intelligence is definitely doing a better job, but it's not 100%. And the other thing is, so if you go on to think with Google, again, they qualify their own findings also, because if you go through it, there's a report, you can look it up. We'll put a link to where you can find this on Google's website, or sites, I should say. It's called the Year in Search 2021, and there's 7 sections, I believe, covering a wide range of topics. And there are counter trends or contradictory trends, I would say, that they would find. And again, this points to what we're just talking about, that business managers have to look at all the data and ultimately decide what's the more important thing here. So you're seeing that searches for travel obviously are up, but you're also seeing that there's a lot of searches for things nearby. So you're seeing people are still looking to stay close to home for a lot of it. So, what's more important? One of the things that, and this will be a good segue into some of the primary research that we did with hospitality professionals, is that in 2021, there was a 400% increase in searches for takeout restaurants, showing that whether this is going to continue well into the future or it's still the result of the fact that the pandemic is still ongoing and it's obviously morphed into a different phase, and we don't know how long this will last and what comes next. But a fourfold increase is a significant one in looking for takeout restaurants. And there was also a 400% increase in searches containing the phrase "open now near me." So again, pointing to the idea that people are looking to stay closer to home, perhaps. So I guess one of the things that we all have to try to figure out going forward is, what are the lasting effects of the pandemic, of COVID, and the changes to business that we've seen? And as I mentioned, we did our primary research. We've done it a couple of times now with hospitality professionals, asking them questions related to a variety of topics. And obviously in this edition, for the first time, we asked them about things that they changed to reopen and or continue to operate, because there were places, there were hotels and certainly restaurants that have been operating throughout. So we did ask in that survey how much hospitality professionals agreed with the statement: hospitality health and safety protocols changed by COVID-19 will be important for the foreseeable future. How much do you agree with that statement? And it was interesting to see that 33% strongly agreed. We'll put the pie chart up so you can see it visually for those who are watching the video of this. So 33% said strongly agree, 33% said somewhat agree. So that's 2/3 of the people either strongly or somewhat agreed. 17% were neutral, meaning they didn't necessarily know for sure. And only 17% said somewhat disagree, and nobody said strongly disagree. So certainly it's 239 respondents feel that there are lasting effects of that. And I think, we talked about an article that appeared in the New York Times a few weeks ago talking about what is the design legacy of COVID. It's a New York Times article. Put the link in the description below. You have to have a subscription to actually read the article. But it was very interesting. It was in their tech and design issue. Just what are the lasting effects? What will be the lasting effects? And they talked about things like touchless check-in for hotels specifically, menus that are not physical menus anymore. In a lot of cases, we're using QR codes, which is interesting. QR codes sort of never caught on in a great way. They've been around for a long time, but they sort of got reinvented during COVID for menus and other ways of connecting information, because people can scan them with their smartphones and link to websites and payment apps and all kinds of things. So they talk about a lot of things like that will probably survive the end of the pandemic, whenever that may be.
I think the QR codes, definitely, because we went to a restaurant just the other night. You had no choice.
Oh yeah.
There were no menus.
Most of them are like that now.
I hadn't seen that, where you had no choice.
Mm-hmm.
I've been to places where you had to request a menu if you wanted one. But this place did not offer menus at all, period.
Oh, it's interesting that you say that. I haven't gone to a lot of restaurants, but the ones that I have, they've all had that. They've all had the QR code on some sort of, either on a placard or a piece of paper that was taped to the table in some cases. And I never thought to even ask. It's like, yeah, this is great.
Yeah.
I can zoom in with my terrible old eyes. I can zoom in and see the text better. Cool. It's great.
I find myself always looking at situations from the business standpoint, from the business owner standpoint, or the business manager standpoint. The codes are great for contactless ordering. You don't touch menus. You don't have to worry about sterilizing them and all that. But think about the process of developing a menu for a restaurant owner. That menu can evolve so much easier and better that way. You don't have to worry about printing new menus or putting in a specials card, or that's all expense, and it's all training the waiters and all that stuff. All that is an expense that goes away.
It does. I mean, there's still an expense depending on who's doing it. Certainly when you're doing daily specials, someone has to there's obviously
updating a website is a lot easier than printing out a new menu card.
Theoretically, it should be. Yes, that is.
And cheaper.
Theoretically, it should be. That is true. I don't remember if it was in this article or I saw it somewhere else, but there's been some discussion, I should say, about the idea that many restaurants, and I want to say high-end, but not necessarily only high-end now that I think about it, the menu is sort of a reflection of their brand. The physical menu used to be a reflection of the brand.
I see where you're going. Yeah.
How it was printed, the paper, the
font.
I mean, that certainly still can appear on a web page.
But I get it that
it loses something
that's connected to the brand. Yeah, I get that.
Right. It loses something in the translation.
Yeah. I
mean, going back even pre-pandemic, I think I can remember that far back at this point. But I know that there were a number of places that had moved like wine lists from physical, some wine lists at a good restaurant that has an extensive wine cellar. Those wine lists could be fairly large volumes, right. Physical volumes. And I know a number of them went to applications that were on a like a tablet, an iPad. They would come to you and give you an iPad. And, I'm obviously pretty tech comfortable. I don't want to say savvy. I'll say comfortable. I think I'm savvy enough to get through most things, but certainly comfortable with tech. And there was something about that I didn't like. I think now I would certainly rather, I guess I could look at it on my phone, I guess with a QR code.
Yeah.
All right, so I think those are interesting, sort of hopefully entertaining insights that we found relating to end of year trends, a little lighthearted Christmas and holiday data that we found. And I think we'll wrap the year up with that. We'll come back in 2022. Wow, it's crazy that's the number we're up to, with some more insights into guest and customer satisfaction. Hope everybody has a wonderful holiday season, whatever holiday you are celebrating, as well as a happy, healthy, and prosperous new year. And we'll see you shortly.
Happy holidays, folks.